Oh, all right. So today we're gonna go over callback reviews, right? A lot of this will be hopefully review. If not, that's fine, right? We'll learn it this time. And please ask any questions if you have any. This is, of course, optional considering last day of class was last Friday. But I do want to know who's with me so that I know that you're fair game to call on a bug. A, that. Tiki, was that a finger? Okay. There. You in the back. All right. Yeah, I know. You're fair game too, right? Or no? Kinda? We'll see. Okay. You're around. All right. Let's start off. Oh, Muna, are you fair game or are you not fair game? To talk. It's an optional lecture. Not fair game. Okay. Thank you. It means that I won't call on you or try to talk to you while I'm doing this. But if you change your mind, let me know. Okay. Can anybody tell me what a callback is? How would we define a callback? Yeah. A function within a function. Okay. So maybe a function within a function. That's our first thing. Yeah, to get. Okay, so that's great. So Takia gave us an even more specific example, which she says it's a function that is passed into another function as an argument. Okay, so this is the one we're going to go with. Make sure you're going to delete that so it's less confusing. So real quick, let's say I have a function called double. Oh, I'm going to have to turn off cap blocks. Function, and I say double, and this takes in, let's say, a number. And we'll just have this nice return. I spelled function wrong. Okay. Functino. It's kind of has like an Italian sound to it. Hey, check out my functino. I'm sorry if there's any Italians here or listening. I'm trying my best. Okay, so we've got a nice double function. And let's say I have a square function as well, right? So I say function square. That can just take in a number, and we're going to have that return number times number. Okay, questions on either of those two functions, like what they are? All right. So real quick, if I say that if I write a function like this, double square, it takes in a number and return double the square. So I'll say square of number, and outside of that, I'll say double, right? So we can try this real quick. I'll say I should be running my code constantly anyway. Double square. 4, we're expecting 1632. And we get 32. Okay, is this a callback? So, based off of our definition that we have there at the front top, what do we think? What's Bane? No. It says no. How come? That's right. So this is not typically this isn't considered a callback. This is a function that's calling another function. That's totally fair game within functions. That's a great way to make your code modular. That's a really good idea to do that, right? This is really easily testable. If I wrote this in multiple steps. So if I'd written this instead, if I had said function functino, function what's spelled wrong? Thank you. Function bad double square, and I did a num, and then I said let square equal num times num, and I said let double square equals square times 2, and then I did return double square, right? Like that's the same thing, right? I can run that down at the bottom and prove it. Right, we should still get 32, assuming I get everything right. But this is a lot harder. Like if this was a lot longer, I mean, this is kind of a silly example because it's somewhat trivial in the sense it's only 3 lines of code, right? If something goes wrong, we don't really have much to look at. But if these other functions were a lot longer and a lot more in depth, then all of a sudden debugging our bad double square could become a lot harder to check to see, well, where is it breaking, right? You have to add a constant log on one line, a constant log on the next line, a constant log on the line after that. And then also it only does one thing, even though it's actually kind of doing a couple different things inside of it, right? So that's a code smell, right? That's something that should go like, oh, that doesn't smell so great, right? It's like when you go step into your grandparents' house, like, ugh. We want to write our code really succinct, as in they do one thing and one thing only. So I can easily check if double is working correctly, right? I could say console.log, whoops, console.log double 4, and I can be like, oh, okay, I'm expecting to see 8. That's 8. I know that one works. So now if my double square wasn't working, I would know it probably has to do with how I'm writing square. All right, this is just like a little bit more review, not exactly in callbacks, just some good practice in how we write our code. Yeah, all right, cool. Okay. By the way, for someone who's not in, you're giving some very good attention. I appreciate that. Okay. And I know I'm not supposed to call on you because you're not in, but I'm not calling, just discussing. All right, so this is not a callback, right? That's what we've decided. This is just a function that calls another function. This is good for modular code, but it's not what we're looking for today. So what about something like this? So let's say we want to do some sort of math, right, between two numbers, and we don't know what math is going to happen, but we want to be able to just call the same kind of function. Okay. I don't know. We'll see what I mean. Let's say I have a function called add, and this takes in num1, num2, and it's going to return num1 plus num2. And I'll also have a function called subtract. That probably should be okay. And we'll subtract num1 from num2 in the next line. Okay. Any questions what either of those two functions are doing and how they're working? Okay. So let's say I have a function and I say do math. And our do math takes in two numbers, num1, num2. But the thing that's going to make do math special is that it's going to use one of our already declared functions. I'm going to say, so if I want to add these two numbers together, I can say add, because I have a function called add. Or this will be, well, this is really going to be the callback, right? Because I'm not invoking it yet. And inside of that, I'm going to say return callback of num1 and num2. Let's see what that might look like in use. So let's say I want to add the numbers 7 and 11 because I love shopping at 7-Eleven. And I've never been able to do the math on my own. So I go, all right, I'm going to do math. with 7 and 11. And I'm going to pass in this add. Add right now is what? Sorry? Add is a callback, and well, add will be a callback in a second, but it is a function, right? So we're passing in this function into our do math, and we're hoping that it will tell us 18. All right, so it's doing some math for us, right? And so this function, just like any parameter or argument that gets passed in, or an argument that gets passed in as a parameter, right? It's variable. We can vary what we enter, right? Just like I can write 9 and 11 instead of 7 and 11, I can do some numbers and a different function. I can say subtract, right? And we're expecting like a -4, I think. Yeah. Right, so I'm using this function, one of these, whatever function that gets passed in this argument, I'm using that and calling it, invoking it inside of my other function. For this example, it's do math. Questions on that? I've seen a little bit of confused faces, but it might just be your expressions. I don't know. If you are confused, let me know. Let's talk about it. All right, cool. Rock and roll. So, what if I didn't already have my named function? What if I didn't have a named function yet? Do you think I can pass an anonymous function in here? Is that fair game? So what if I say function? How many arguments does this function need to take? I'm hearing a couple people say 2 and a couple people say 3. The anonymous function. The one I'm in the middle of writing. 2. Why? Can't explain. How many arguments is this anonymous function going to take in? Okay, why? Right. Great. So John A is saying, hey, we've got our do math here, and do math takes in 3 arguments, and then into the callback function that it takes, it passes in these 2 arguments. These 2 arguments that it takes in get passed into the callback, right? So that's why add and subtract both need to have 2 arguments, and that's why do math is going to take these 2 and pass it in. It's expecting. So if our callback here takes 1 argument, okay, it's going to be passed nums. It's going to be passed num1 and num2 no matter what, right? So if this function, or anonymous function here, takes 1 argument, then it's just going to ignore the second one you pass, and it's going to do whatever it's going to do with that 1 argument, right? And let me show you an example of that. Right, I could say, I'll say argument 1, and I'll just return, oops, all that. Sometimes you get like the weirdest shortcuts. And if I could just return, what up, arg1. So if I run this, what do we expect is going to happen? What to get? So she says it's going to have an error because it expects 2 arguments. Any other guesses? She says arg1 is not defined. Okay. No. That's right. I did say that. So what's it gonna? So what's it gonna print out? Great. Okay, so let's try that and then let's explain that. Very good catch, Bane. I had just said the answer. That was good. So what happened here, right, is we're going to address, first we're going to address you, Janelle. So Janelle said, hey, argument one's not defined. Well, it is. It's right here. This is the same thing as if I would have just taken this, right? I could have done X, and I could have said, let fun function equal this, right? That causes no alarm, right? Because this is just an argument one, just like these are num1, num2. This is the parameter that, or the argument that's going to get passed on, so we have access to it. But instead of doing that, we put it here, because it's just an anonymous function instead of saving it to a variable. So we're going to print out what up 7 because it only takes in one argument. But in JavaScript, if you just pass in more arguments, it just ignores them. Right, so same with if I said, like what? Ooh. So if I did arg2, arg3, and I wanted to return arg1 plus arg2 plus arg3, now what do we expect to happen? What's our output going to be? Yeah, Ben, you want to take a shot? Okay, so Bain says maybe an error. I'm not totally sure yet why it is. Yeah. You say 18? Okay. How come? Well, so what's going to happen here, though, right? What's going to happen? It's going to be, our function's going to be invoked, and it's going to be passed to arguments. So this function is going to be invoked, and it's going to be passed to arguments. So what's it going to be? What's our third argument going to be? Undefined, okay. And our first two arguments will be? 7, 11. So what's 7 plus 11 plus undefined? Nikki, you got a guess?
7 plus 11.
Plus undefined.
Oh.
Okay. What happens when you plus things? Plus is kind of an interesting operator, right? At first it does numerical check, and then it does what? String conversion. In this case, it's not a number. Right. I thought it might give us a string of undefined. I was wrong. Okay. Right, so this gives us NaN because 7 plus 11 plus undefined is not a number. Fair? All right. So if I remove our 3 now, and I get rid of this too, okay. Now what are we going to get? Yeah. Right. So Janelle says 18. Bingo. There you go. Okay, so this is callbacks, right? This is how that's happening. We're passing in a function, all right? And it can be an anonymous function. Here I wrote it in ES5. This is it in ES6. Still going to give us R18. So where else do we use this? Well, what about if I asked you to write a function that took in an array and a callback, and it logged the output of double of each element in the array. So that's your task for the next 10 minutes, right? It's write a function. It takes in an array and a callback. Logs to the screen each element doubled. So if the array is 1, 2, 3, 4, this should print out 2, 2, 4, 6, 8 on different lines. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so give that a shot. Okay, so your first hand will do that. You'll need to use a line. Okay.
So pretty much this will be the fall.
Okay. All right, let me try to narrow down our scope a little bit because I see a few people getting kind of lost. So this is going to take, this function here is, we're going to call this like every element, or you can call it, I don't really care what you call it as long as you don't get confused. But this isn't double, right? Because this is just taking an array and a callback. We're going to use that callback to double every element. So you're also going to need a function called double, which is going to take in a number. Right? We wrote that one earlier. And so when we actually go to call this at the end of the day, it's going to be every element, 1, 2, 3, 4, double. Right? So we're going to use this callback. When we write with functions that have a callback, we have to assume that whoever's passing us the callback knows what they're doing. So ours is, we're just writing something to touch every element, and the callback is going to do whatever the user wants. For our situation, as we are the user, we're going to double each element. Okay? So we'll try that.
Like I know that would be and that's probably stuff with. I feel like this is when I call this callback, it's when I do that. So like, I don't understand. Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I feel like this function that's going to double the number, right? So it's not calling here. I'm thinking this callback is here, it's going to do that work.
This is getting faster. This is double.
So after the 4 loop, to double the number.
We're gonna talk about
So before I have to return.
not for this one. Okay, I'm bringing attention back. This one was tough, right? Yay, nay, okay. How do we do? Okay. Yeah, right? So it's a little tricky. So let's kind of work our way through this. So a lot of us seem to get hung up on, let me get rid, I'm gonna comment down. It doesn't matter. Well, I think it's gonna bother. I'm gonna get rid of the stubble for now. I'm gonna get rid of everything. Okay. So we have our double that we're writing, and we said return num times 2. right? We felt mostly pretty confident on that. And then we have this function every element, and we went, hey, we've got this array, the callback. Now, I gave us a hint. I said we're going to use a for loop. So, okay. And we're going to touch every element in the array. So we're going to say for starting let I is 0, y, I is less than array.length. Oh my god. I'll do plus equals 1. Okay. What? I misspell. Thank you. Let's see what happens. So let's try to do some real debugging so we can get used to making mistakes. Oh, syntax, unexpected number at new script. Not the greatest error. But it's this one, right? It's like, okay, that was one error. You're expecting the length, and nothing has happened. Yeah, so I'm going to keep going even though I know I have an error. Just for debugging purposes. If you see an error in your code in real life, just fix it right away. But think before you fix it. Don't just gut change it without thinking. That's not good. That becomes guess and check mode. You don't know if something's broken. Think about why it's broken. Think about what will fix it, and then write. A lot of people are really quick to change it. Just, oh, okay. So we said, hey, we're going to use this callback on every single element. Okay, so I'm going to say callback add array add I. Right? This is going to fire whatever function gets passed on to every element in our array. We go, okay, well, nothing's happening still. Still no error. I'm not seeing it, but I said, oh, well, we're going to log it to the screen. Okay, so I'm just going to console log this. Or, so there's two options, right? I could console log here. You know, if I could type correctly. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So that should have thrown an error, right? And I'll go, I'm not actually hitting this at all. There must be something wrong with my for loop. And now I'm aware that there's that. I go, okay, so that works if I'm logging. But I want to make this, like, what if I don't want to just print to the screen? What if I want to use this for something else? I don't know. Well, then maybe I log, maybe my doubler just console logs. Right? That's fair game, too. Still works. Questions on that? Would you believe me if I told you just wrote a for each? Maybe. And this is basically a for each. We're just not calling it as a method on the array. But this is taking in an array, iterating through it, and using a callback on every single element. That's what for each does. Right? Okay. So what about if I wanted to triple every element, but I didn't want to declare a brand new function like and name it? Can I make an anonymous function that triples everything in this array and prints that to the screen? Where should I do that? Sorry? In every element? Like in here or in here? Right here. Well, if I do it up here, I'm making my every element less useful because I already have this being able to take in callback. So I don't want to do that there, but I can declare a function right here, and I could also make it anonymous. And this is going to take in an element, and I can just log element times 3. Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. All right, this is starting to look more and more like for each. Questions on that? So what if I wanted you, as your next challenge, to write a function called every element array that takes in an array and a callback and returns a new array where each element has been called with the callback. Questions on what I'm asking? So instead of it printing out 3, 6, 9, 12 or something, this would, if I called this on every element array, passing this in and passing this in, it would return an array that has 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay? Questions on that? Give me something to show whether or not you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Sure. So I want you to write a function called every element array. And it's going to be quite similar to our every element. It's going to touch every single element in our array. But instead of just printing out what comes back like our other one, we're going to call callback on every element. And we're going to keep that in a new array. And we're going to return that at the end. So just like in this example where I said array element and I had it say 3, 6, 9, 12. If I did array element array here, I would want this to return, well, pretend that this is, hang on. I would want this to give us back the value of 3, 6, 9, 12. So I want you to return in a new array with every element that's been acted on by the callback. Cool? Thank you.
Returns the result of test three. Check.
Right. Okay. So how did that exercise feel? Up, down, maybe a frown. So that one was pretty good. That one was better than the fake for each, right? Now, would you believe me if I told you that that was map, right? So we just disguised map, and that's what you wrote. So instead of calling it every element array, I'm actually going to call it my map. I'm going to say function my map, and we said that it takes an array and a callback. We said we're going to have an output array. And then we looped through it. So we said, hey, for let I 0, I is less than array.length, I plus plus. And then we said, okay, so last time we just console logged it, but we didn't want to do that again this time because then we're kind of limiting ourselves, we're just printing things. So instead we were like, all right, we're going to call our callback on every single element. But we didn't want it to just disappear in the wind. So we wanted to save its result, its return value. So instead we were going to go output.push, add it there. And at the very end, when all is said and done, we can just return our output. So let's see this in action. So we go, all right, my map, 1, K1, 2, 3, 4, and then we said we're going to write a function here, right? We could name it, we could declare it somewhere else and just pass it in, or we could write it directly into here. So I'll say function and this takes in an element, and I'm just going to return that element times 3, because we said we wanted to see what would happen if we tripled it. And we get a screwed up somewhere. Let's figure out where. Every element array is not defined. Right? Where am I calling that? Right here, because that was part of the example. So the problem's probably not the code. No. So we got it, right? We got our 3, 6, 9, 12. So we were, I mean, we did it. We were successful, right? A lot of us had this problem. And it would give us undefined, 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 undefined. And we go, hey, what's going on? Where's that happen? Right? This is a function. This whole thing. That's a function. If we want it to return something, we have to write return. Otherwise, it returns undefined. So we'd say, all right, callback. What's its return value? Undefined, push it in. Undefined, push it in. So that was a pretty good fix. All right, if we wanted to write it ES6 style, take that out. Give ourselves a nice fat arrow. Still get that. If we remove the curly braces, we get implicit returns, which I think is where some of us might have been trying to do. We still get it. So that's a win-win. But let's not have that little thing. Okay, so questions on the mind map or every element array. Okay, so how about we do like another one here, and maybe I'm not going to hide this one this time, right? I'm going to say write a my filter that takes in an array and callback for returns a new array with elements that return true from the callback. Questions on what I mean by that? And callback, and I want it to return a new array with elements that return true for every callback. So for this one, it's like if I call, if I say my filter, and I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say, and I say only evens. If I were to do that, I want it to return an array that looks like that. Questions on that? Okay, cool. All right, so let's give ourselves a little bit of time to do that. Extra hint, look at your map. Can you help us?
So you said, see what you're saying, but I'm not sure. not scared of concept. It's what people like. That's my mind.
Yeah, that's a little hard. All right, let's talk about this. So would you believe it if I told you you wrote a filter? Is this what? Yeah, this is identical. Seems simpler now. Yeah, so I mean, we're going to talk a little bit more about prototypes. I think that's on our Thursday schedule. But for prototypes is like, you know how usually we can write like, and then we can do dot for each, right? Or dot my map. And then this is the callback, right? That's what when we do the prototype, it allows us to have this kind of behavior. So we can call a method on that instance of that class. So that's the only difference. So this is a function. This gets invoked function style, right? This is a function that gets invoked method style. That's the main difference. And adding something to the prototype allows us to do that. But we'll get more into prototypes. Prototype is more of like an inheritance of what every instance from this class has available to it. Well, we'll get into that. Okay. So let's quickly bang this one out. So I'm going to say, looks like I'm going to make an only evens function. So I'm going to say const only evens. I'm going to write an ES6 for this one. This one's going to take in a num. And I'm going to say num modulo 2. So if this is equal to 0, oh, that's all I need, right? This should return whether or not this is even. It's going to say, hey, num modulo 2, if that's equal to 0, it's going to return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. All right, that's a slick way of writing it in the ES6. Okay. So then we'll go to my filter, and we'll say const my filter. And we said this takes an array and a callback. And we said, okay, so we let output, or for this purpose, I'll say let filtered. So these are the ones that we wanted to keep. And we'll say for. Now, just for the record, I could potentially, right, I could use our original for each that we wrote and use that. But I think it's going to be a little bit more confusing right now, so I'm not going to do that yet. So we'll say let I equal 0 or O. I is less than array.length. I plus. All right, I'll give us another one so we get used to seeing this in a couple different ways. Okay, and then we can say if, and we have to check if the output of our callback with that element is true. So I can say, hey, if callback of array at I. So if that's a true thing, then I want to add to filter my array at I. And then at the bottom here, I just want to return filter. Question? Sure. Equal to true, totally fine. It's still going to work. If statements, if we remember, will run based on if inside of it, if that evaluates to something that is truthy. So if statements don't care necessarily if it's literally true, they care if it's truthy. So the string hello, if the string hello, does that run or not run? That runs, right? How about if 0? Not going to run, right? 0 is false. If empty string. No, because empty string is false. If NaN. Okay, how about if some object? Yes, right? So there's only like 6, or some people consider 7 false values in JavaScript that are, let's do it. So we said empty string. What else do we have? NaN, 0, undefined, yeah. False. What else? 2, 3, 4, 5. Null. What's the other one that people sometimes consider? Kind of a silly one. -0. The book I'm reading right here is talking about 7 false values, and they're saying -0. Not really sure what -0 is. You usually get away with saying 6. But you can also specify and say, I'm aware of -0. Okay, those are the false values. So if any of these things, we're not going to run our if statement. If anything else, we will run the if statement. So for this, if I wrote my evens here to evaluate something else, like if I just wanted to check if a num, if I wanted to get rid of all falsy values, and I just, so well, let's do that next. So I'll say const true value element, and I say just going to return the element. All right, that's pretty boring. First, let me just check to make sure that my filter works. No, of course not. I must have a bunch of other crap written. Because we didn't actually run the code. Okay, so my filter is working. All right, so now if I say my filter, let's try my filter. And I'm going to fill an array with a bunch of different things. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to have an empty string. I'm going to have a 0. I'm going to have a 1. I'm going to have an NA. And I am going to have an empty array. And I'm going to pass in true value. What do we think is going to come back? What are we going to have? What, one more time, Janelle? One more time, a little louder.
Just gonna have hello.
Hello? 1. And an empty array. Okay. I'm with you. Way to go. Right, so I wrote, the way I've written this is not looking for literally true evaluation. I am accepting truthy evaluation. Right, if I change this So equal to true. Oops. What do we expect to get back? So I think we're going to get an empty array. Ah, what? Why? Who can tell me why? Yeah, because we're looking at the string hello, and we're saying, hey, is hello equal to true? We go, no, hello's not equal to true. Hello is truthy, but it's not true, you know? Kind of like the, you know, when my wife asked me, you know, what have you been doing? You know, it's like, I was hanging out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a very loyal husband. But, like, you know, you could say something that's truthy without it being true. Sorry? The double equal sign, well, Johnny, what do you think the double, okay, well, Johnny, what's it going to give us back if we do the double equal sign? What's the double equal sign going to give us back? What do we think? I know this is like super trivia here. What are we going to get back with just the double equal sign? Initially, okay. Anyone think different? So what is the double equal sign? What's that doing? What does that do? Why is that different? Why do I not encourage it?
I know it doesn't compare. Like if the number 2 is a string and if the number 2 is a 2,
that's right.
It's gonna just say that it's a 2.
Right. It's gonna look for equivalency,
but it's not.
But it's also going to do type changing. Right. If I'm not mistaken, I think we're going to have a 1 back. Yeah. Because true gets evaluated as a value of 1. That's like really some silly JavaScript knowledge, but the comparison of 1 equal to with double equal sign to true gives us back true. It agrees with that. Because true has a value of 1 hidden inside of it. But that kind of gave you unexpected behavior, right? Like nobody else in the room felt confident that they knew what it was going to be. So that kind of shows you, double equal sign, not so great, really. It's confusing to other people who read your code. Like if I wanted this to just give me back 1s and trues, if you read my code, you'd probably think, what is this guy doing? Right? It'd be better to say triple equal to 1 or triple equal to true. Or if I just want truthy values, in general, I can remove that true and I can just get the truthy values filter. Okay, so to answer your question, Vane, I decided to give slight more flexibility to my filter. It wasn't a requirement for what I asked, and the triple equals to true is totally just as valid, right? That's why all of these functions, like on MDN, they have a documentation of what they're expecting, so that the user and the creator have the same understanding of what's expected from each other, what behavior they're going to give me back, making sure that I put in appropriate information. Okay, so we basically did your own for each, your own map, your own filter. I'm going to skip over reduce today. I don't want to kill us. Any other questions on callbacks in general? Do you feel like you have a better understanding of callbacks, the same, or worse? Better. So overall, pretty much better. Celine said worse. No, just kidding. She didn't say that. Celine's a pro. Okay. Well, thank you. You don't have to clap. All right. Thank you. I'll share out that link.